Hi, everybody. We are live with Marc Morgenstern. Hey, Marc.
How are you this morning, Kelly?
I am doing fine. Yeah, it's 11 here in Kansas City, and you are in at Berkeley, right?
I am in
In
Berkeley, California.
California. Yeah. So 9 a.m. there. Thank you so much. And I know we'll have people watching on the East Coast, so noon over there. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And whatever time you happen to watch this, we are live on LinkedIn and on YouTube today. And we are talking about Marc's book. How we got to know each other was The Soul of the Deal. And I couldn't wait to read this book because I follow deals, and I'm in a group, the Association for Corporate Growth, that's all about deals, and just as a business person, you pay attention to those things. So I couldn't wait
Good
to read
idea.
your book. Yeah, right. Couldn't wait to read your book to hear about somebody's bringing soul into this conversation. And who better than you to who has taught about deals and also been involved with, well, I don't know how many, but thousands of them over your career.
Hundreds I'm very comfortable with. Thousands is a stretch.
Okay. Hundreds and of all different sizes and types.
Yeah, everything from selling a $1 million machine shop to selling $1 billion public company.
Yeah. It's so
A lot of
interesting.
stuff in between.
Yeah. Thank you so much for catching up with me a couple weeks ago, and then for agreeing to go on today. I'm excited to share you with people that I know and that would be in my realm, in my network. So thank you so much for doing this today for me.
It'll be fun. Was
Yeah.
last time.
So what did prompt you to write the book?
So I don't remember what answer I gave you last time. I'll,
I
I'll
don't
tell you.
either.
I'll tell you this week's answer. So this week's answer is the most direct and deepest answer is for my children. You
Mm,
know, um, there was a politician who we were helping on something, and he said something about how well your kids would know that because you know that. And I said, well,
mm,
that's interesting. Do you think that the violinist Itzhak Perlman, the best violinist in the world, do you think his kids know how to play the violin because they grew up in his house? Because my view is not so much. If there's one thing we didn't talk about, it was deals. I mean, they talked about them and their schools and their grades and their studies and their hopes and their dreams. Okay. So the deepest motivation for this is really to share my life with my children and make sure that they amortize the hard-earned lessons that I've learned.
mm,
If you then sort of expand my children to, I almost regard the whole world as my children.
mm.
So I'm a relentless teacher and mentor and helper person. And one of the things that sort of happens is you realize at some point you can do a lot of that one-on-one, which I've done for decades, but there's a limit to your organic reach.
Mhm.
So if you're really trying to amortize the thoughts and you think the thoughts are important, and as you know, Kelly, I don't think I'm important. I think the
Right.
thoughts are important. So if you think the thoughts are important, and I do because they're so different from how other people approach it, then you write a book because that's the only way to really get mass dissemination. Ugh,
Mhm.
that's not possible.
Well,
Sorry about
and
that.
the are you having mic trouble? Oh, and the
I'm a live LinkedIn podcast at this moment. Thanks. Bye.
oh,
No, sorry about that.
oh, that's okay.
He was calling
Uh,
to make sure I knew that I was supposed to be on the podcast with you now.
oh, that yeah, I did email because I didn't hear back. So oh, that's nice. And you'll hear my dog too. So I have my LinkedIn lives have been sponsored by or not really, but Milkbone because my dog will be whimpering. You met my dog last time we talked. Um,
Yeah, I did.
but we did talk about that about your reason last time, and I remember what struck me was in the book that it's not a how to do a merger. It's not the process of it, although there are ideas about that, but it really is the underlying more purposeful, um, influential aspects of a merger that that there might be something that you would say in a which is you would be able to tell somebody that's on the merger team if they happen to be in the room and they ask you a question, why did you say that way, or why did you
Until
do it this approach?
you blinked out for 1 second and lost the picture and the words.
Oh, or
And
am I back?
I don't know what just happened here. Can you see me?
I can see you.
Okay, that's pretty weird. Then I'll settle for the
Hmm.
fact that I can, but so you know I can't see you.
Okay, let me see if I I'm going to close this for a second here. I don't know if this will do anything.
Let me try linking back in and see if this will work that way.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. We'll pause for a technical.
Entering the studio.
There. Okay. I removed Mark for a second.
Now I can see you. Oh, there we go.
Okay. Very good.
All set.
Okay. Perfect. But so what I was saying was your intention for the book, the disseminating your ideas and your thoughts, and it's more than a how to do a deal, but it's the kind of those nuances that if you're like I've been on a merger team before, merger acquisition team, and when you're so many things are happening, but if somebody got to ask you, why did you say it that way, or why did you approach that person with that strategy, or the behind the scenes things that you could only ask if you're in the room, or you would only know if you're in the room. So you really captured a lot of those in this book. And I took so many notes beyond what I was anticipating. And I've used a few already too, and not even not even in mergers and acquisitions, but in proposals. And they've been very helpful. So I appreciated those. When you think about the soul, what prompted that as the title, and what does that mean to you?
We find a title for book. So I was just making a weird. I'm getting feedback.
Yeah, you are a little bit.
Okay, what do we drop now? I have no idea.
There's that better.
Try again. How about now?
There, that's better.
It would not be much of a show about technology if the technology
right.
So, it turns out, I mean, I've written like several dozen articles, but I never wrote a book. So I never had any idea of what you actually do and how much promotion counts and how much the title counts. Because people, like 50% of their buying decisions from the title. Seriously. That's just how it works. So with my publisher and the person in charge of printing, very talented people, we probably went through 200 titles. And some of them, the sort of theme was deal jammers, learn how to be a deal jammer. One of the titles was AI doesn't close deals, people do. By the way, is still that comes closer to what I'm trying to say than anything else.
It's a good one, yeah.
And then the subtitles, it turns out, mean a lot. So they wanted a subtitle. Then we went back to sort of, starting with the deal as a concept. And I had beta readers who were super helpful to me, really smart people. My publisher, by the way, these are friends who are helping. And one of them said, I don't think you use the word soul enough in your book, because that's what's really different about you is how soulful you are. And I went, that's what it needs to be in the title, the soul of the deal. Because if you start with the concept which I do, that people are the epicenter of everything, not spreadsheets, that's my shorthand way of saying that the person opposite you is not a mirror. And by the way, they're not really opposite you. They're your counterparty. They're not an enemy. And if you're trying to persuade somebody, which is what you're trying to do, or sell, or influence them, no matter how you frame them, the first rule of selling is know your audience. You want to know who they are and what might motivate them. And so I think a mistake, I do think it's a mistake that people make all the time, is they don't try to get to learn who they're talking with. They sort of assume everybody's the same, and what motivates one person will motivate the next person. And it's just not true, as you know. I mean, what moves you to do something isn't what moves me to do something. What moves me to do something today might not have been what moved me to do something 20 years ago. So you have to start with people and their soul, and not their superficial. I'm the vice president of marketing. I went to ABC College. I'm in the Rotary Club. Great. I could find that out on LinkedIn.
Right.
What I wanted is, who are you? Not what do you do?
Yeah.
No big difference, right? And that's in your business. That's all of it. Who are you? Not what do you do?
Right. Right. And paying attention to that throughout the deal, throughout the engagement in my case, but the deal in the book, not just assessing it at the beginning, because some of the deals can take several months, or most of them, so that you're not just looking at it once, because people change through the course. And I know there's some examples where by the end of the deal they change their mind, or things, circumstances change. So you have to know the motivations and understand them the whole time, not
Yeah,
just a one-off shallow thing.
yeah, yes, and
Hmm.
so another piece of it is a distinction I make, which I think is helpful to people. Chris Voss wrote a great book, truly, Never Split the Difference. He's the
Hmm.
FBI hostage
Oh
negotiator.
yeah, yeah,
And in it, he's dealing with what to me are very much encyclopedia sales kinds of circumstances. It might last an hour, it might last 24 hours. He's not going
mm,
to be hanging a hijacker for 3 months.
right.
So in that setting, you can create a much less real sense of rapport and relationship with someone because it's not going to have to hold up over time. If you're in a deal, and they call that, by the way, tactical empathy,
Mm,
right? It's time for
yeah,
specific one time. If you're in a deal, I think what you need is sustainable deal empathy. And
yeah,
that is genuine empathy because you want that person, all those people, to want to return your phone call, pay attention when you ask for something. And people do really like to do business with people they like to do business with.
hmm,
So, part of what you're trying to do in being a person that people like to do business with, almost every counterparty I've ever had loves talking about themselves. Some don't, but in general, it's the most comfortable thing for people to talk about because they're curating their own story. They're using their own words. They're telling you the pieces they want. So they know they can't be wrong. And having them talk about themselves is very helpful to get them relaxed from my perspective. It's very helpful because I get to get some piece at least of how they think, who they think they are. I may or may not agree with it, but at least I know their self-perception. And once I know that, I can adjust vocabulary, I can adjust all kinds of things. Because I think my job is to figure out who is the counterparty, what's the best way to interact with them.
right. And they'll give you clues of what to say to them. So
Yes.
yes, if you're paying attention and listening to what they say, they'll tell you what's important, and and then you don't have to talk about the other stuff. Talk about what they say is important to them.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
that,
that's
obviously, that fills out the what you're doing, which is you're listening for rhythm, you're listening for style. What's
hmm,
particularly helpful is not even if people tell you, I was born in Wichita and I moved to this and I did this. Those are facts and those are useful. Excuse me. What's much more useful is great. Why did you do that? What
right.
choices did you make? What process did you go through in making that decision? And so, if you can get people to share all of that with you, and people are usually pretty open and generous with that, by the time you've heard how someone's made 5 different decisions, if you're paying attention, you should have some good sense of how to frame what you're doing right now. Right?
Hmm.
They make decisions on the spot in a hurry by themselves. They're a gunslinger. Okay, I can work with that. They're
Yeah,
very deliberate, cautious. They always check with 6 people, and okay, I can work with that. Now I know I've got 6 more people's opinion I have to worry about. But it lets you learn so much about the probable way to get to a good outcome for everyone and identifying probably what really is wheat for them, not chaff. They really,
right,
really want this variable, and they're just not that concerned about this one. So
right.
my kids sometimes, and I this bothers me, but they think part of what I do is Machiavellian, and I just think,
Hmm.
well, all I want to do is understand who they are. What I didn't decide who they were. I didn't make the rules for how people make decisions. I'm just trying to find out who they are and how to best work with them. So I think of it as a lot more like Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. But you could look at it a different way.
Well, and what I looked at it as, use your power for good. So it's not, the point isn't to close every deal to hurt people. To get as much money as you can, because it's win-win. You want the other side to be, honor yourself, honor them. Honor, and
Now I
um,
agree with that. If Kelly, if I gave somebody an agreement, and they said, don't need to change a thing, we'll sign it as it is, I would not do that deal. There's something very wrong there. Either they're
Yeah.
bored, they're lying, they don't know what they're doing, they don't know what they're
Mhm.
agreeing to, and you can't reach agreement with somebody who doesn't know what they're agreeing to. Like,
Yeah.
people think, oh, that's great, I've got somebody really inexperienced on this my counterparty. No, you want the most experienced, smartest group as your counterparty.
Mhm.
Then you know that if you reach agreement, it's a knowledgeable, informed agreement. Nobody later on says, I didn't know. How could I possibly know? Well, you did know. You may not like it, but you knew. The inexperienced person is a different problem. And if you're on the buy side of deals, usually or frequently the buyers have done one or more transactions. Sellers, particularly in the middle market, it's the only
Mhm.
time they'll ever do a deal.
Right.
So you know they're inexperienced. You hope that their team is more experienced, that their lawyer's done 29 deals, their accountants
Mhm.
involved. Because if all of them are doing their first deal for the first time, it's almost impossible to get a deal done because you can't reach compromises with them. They think they're being tricked or fooled. They don't know what the range of normal is. So you want an A-plus team as your counterparty every time.
Yeah. And that both sides come in expecting a deal that works for both. And I know there's statistics. I don't remember if you included them, but I know just from experience that so many deals don't work out afterwards. The deals close, and then it's well over half, right? That
It
they
is.
end up failing. And then think about the impact of that on all of those people, not just the people involved in the negotiation, but the employees that are involved and the family members. And it's just so disruptive when they don't work out.
They're disruptive even when they do work out, but
Well, not right, exactly.
but they're way more disruptive when they don't work out. And
Exactly.
I really do think that I can't quantify it because there's no way of doing this statistically, but I do think that one of the reasons deals fail is that you and talent people aren't involved much earlier in the negotiations. If they were, you would see, wow, this is really an abrasive, we have alienated person X.
Yeah.
Person Y loves us, person Z hates us, this person doesn't want to work with us, this person's going to slow walk the deal. Because when you go to integrate companies operationally and the people who are doing the integration don't know what happened during the negotiation, you're asking somebody to go in blind. And
Hmm.
that's not so I think that if people like you had more visibility into it and were more participatory, I don't think you'd get that fail rate because you'd
Yeah.
have picked those along the way and you'd know how to address them.
Right.
Right?
I totally agree with that. And the ones I was involved in before, I haven't been involved in any for probably 4 or 5, probably 5 or 6 years officially. The but you can see when somebody is going to probably sabotage, slow walk it through, like you said, and do the bare minimum. You can tell that that's going to happen, that they're not really in. They're just going to hang on until they get their buyout deal, and then it'll dissolve, or you can see that happening. You can see it coming. So yeah, I
Yeah.
wish they would include me more, include people like me, and early on before it's announced. And one all hands meeting, one all staff meeting, and one all staff memo is not enough. So to get
Yeah.
everyone involved.
And
Um,
also getting sort of snippets along the way, because even if you walked in the week before, a lot
right.
of things happened before that.
That's
And
right.
somebody's already put on their poker face, but 3 meetings ago, that they said, I'd rather dig a ditch than do this deal.
Yeah.
And so you and I think the operation people, will my counterparties in operations really want to make the integration work? Will our technology infrastructure really
Right.
is it really interoperable? People who are selling tend to be, and fairly, by the way, somewhat defensive. They don't want to give away the crown jewels until they're sure there's a deal. So
Hmm.
that part of it is almost appropriate seller behavior, right?
Hmm.
I don't know there's a deal until I know there's a deal.
Yeah. Yeah. I understand that.
There's that tension on both sides.
Yeah.
That said, the earlier the people who are responsible for actually making the stuff integrate and work, that's you and your peers and the operation folks. And by the way, it's usually not really the CEO.
Mm-hmm.
The CEO says, please, we did this, the numbers work. We should have $12 more in revenue next month. Let me know when we have it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and this is such a good guide for so many different pieces related to operations and the work that I do and the negotiations at the table. And I think everybody involved in a deal could benefit from it. And yeah, I really appreciated it. I think in our conversation, yeah, at the end of our conversation last time, I mentioned that I had something coming up, and so I was able to use your advice and use the book, and that conversation continues on. So for you, thank you, and just to everybody else, straight from the book and from the horse's mouth, great advice. So whether you're doing deals or just working with clients and understanding influence and persuasion and negotiation and using your powers for good. I wanted to touch on the deal circle. So I do a lot with stakeholders, and I talk a lot about that in leadership and in classes that I teach too in the MBA program at Rockhurst. The deal circle. I hadn't heard that worded quite the way you do.
I made it up.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Do you want to just share that concept for everybody?
Yeah. So I'm going to use my hands for a second. The deal circle is a literal circle. It is 4 concentric circles. So boom, 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 boom. At the center, right, the sort of obvious people doing a deal, there's a buyer and a seller. And say differently, everybody negotiating can see the buyer, they can see the seller. So those stakeholders are totally obvious, and you're trying to influence them one way or the other. Around them is a second circle that are influencers, although you don't always see them. So that second circle includes lawyers, accountants, investment bankers. You may never see the investment banker during the negotiation. Right. I can guarantee you that the investment banker is being consulted after every negotiation. And even the lawyer that you see, because there's usually a corporate lawyer at the table, what you don't see are their EPA lawyer, their ERISA lawyer, their tax lawyer, litigation partner, there are 15 other lawyers that they're talking with, and you know that those people will hear a slightly different version of the story than the real story because you're farther away from it.
Yeah.
But they're influencing the deal. You go farther out, you frequently you would not even think about employees while you're negotiating the sale of a company, but how the employers are going to react, how your customers are going to react. Yeah. Those people are in the next circle. And then finally, there's a fourth circle of people who are really attenuated. The regulatory agencies that will get involved maybe today, but maybe not for 3 years. You don't know. And then there's the ever-present media, which I'm kind of moving that one closer into the middle of the circle now.
Yeah.
Because things get out and customers get scared and suppliers get scared. And in a world in which every internal memo seems to be leaked the second it's labeled confidential, that can totally derail a deal. So thinking about, I don't know where to put the social media in that circle.
Yeah, that's a good one. Huh?
But you have to, at least you don't have to. I, at this point in time, assume that confidentiality will be breached. Mm-hmm. I don't know exactly how, when, why, or by who, but I assume that it will. And I sort of prepare defensively to what am I going to deal with when that leak happens, because I'm sure it's going to happen. So that's the whole deal circle. And the way you framed it, which I think is a great way to frame it, is the stakeholders. It's everybody you may need to get a yes from every one of those people. Some of them have a lot of incentive to give you a yes, the buyer and the seller. Okay, I need to compromise and give up another $1. Okay, I make the decision right now. Other people, your landlord, you need a consent to a change in control. What do they care? They don't see any money across the table. They don't have intensity and urgency. And so part of what you're doing in identifying the stakeholders is giving yourself a very disciplined way to think about how many yeses do I have to get? Who do I get them from? How soon do I have to start to get the yes? Why will they give me a yes? By doing that on day one, you think through all of those things, or at least you've got a tool to do it. If you don't, people just sort of start with, well, the deal starts, the buyer and the seller, the lawyers, and it slowly works their way out. And then frequently what happens is the closing's next week, and you need a consent from somebody that's going to take a month to get it.
Yeah.
So it's both conceptual and it's practical. And the other piece of it, and the reason I made it a circle, you can't be on the other side of a circle, right?
Right.
You're all on the outside of the circle,
right.
you're all inside the circle, but you're not enemies, you're not on the opposite side. And the point is, we're all in this together trying to get to a deal. We may want different deals, but we really are aligned because you don't have a buyer without a seller, and you don't have a seller without a buyer.
Mm-hmm.
It's no more complicated than that.
Yeah. I really like that idea of thinking about that all on day one and, planning, mapping it out. And because I have been involved where they just kind of go with the flow. And then at the end, we just need a sign off from somebody. Well, they're not around, or they do have an opinion and they do want to be wined and dined about it, or, have presentations. And even though there's no money there, they take more time, and then that delays. The banker wasn't happy in that example, in that experience that I had. Yeah, that was a long time ago, but I remember the banker was not happy. So just mapping all of it out ahead of time and starting.
I would say that's the norm, Kelly. That's not the exception.
Yeah.
People do not like being ignored.
Yeah.
Early on, so they know that, hey, we know you exist, we know you care. You're probably going to get the yes pretty easily.
Right.
After at the last minute and put them under pressure, and they've got to make a decision, and they don't know all the facts, they don't know the consequences. A no is a very probable result. So why would you want to do it to yourself?
Yeah, and they feel like they've been overlooked. So why? Yeah, they feel kind of insulted. So no need for that. Yeah, so many things like that in this book that I really appreciated. So I'm going to let you go because I know you have things to do out there today. So thank you so much for sharing. We just had time to go into a few of the specifics, but I do appreciate you sharing the soul of the deal with my contacts and my network. And I encourage everybody to read it. And I did put a review of it on Amazon, and I'm very judicious in giving those. So I meant it. I'm very sincere in that. So yeah, thank you very much for writing it, for sharing it, for talking with me, and for sharing it with my contacts and my network. And I hope you all enjoy the interview, read the book, and I would love to talk with anybody else about the book too. So if you have questions for me or for Mark, you can post them in the LinkedIn or on the YouTube. I'll open the comments on YouTube if they're not open yet, and we'll watch for that and see if anything comes up. So thank you very much, Mark. I look forward to keeping in touch and talking with you again soon.
It'll be my pleasure. And remember, you can always laugh while you're learning.
Yeah, for sure.